This is The Simpit. I'm your host, Sean Cole, and today we have a very special guest on the show. And before we get to him, you can see him on screen already. This is Tyler Wang of Simagic. But Simagic has really shocked the world over the last few years. If you think about them, they're a company that started out with just a wheel. And who is this company? And in a very short amount of time, they have become one of the most extensive, innovative companies in sim racing, now offering an entire spectrum of products. Basically, any piece of hardware you need as a sim racer is now offered by Simagic. And one of the people behind that is Tyler Wang, who we are lucky enough to have on the show today to talk about Simagic and just part of what makes them who they are. So welcome to the show, Tyler. How are you doing today?
Thanks a lot, Sean. I've been a fan of Simpit and you, Sean, for a very long time. So it's very humbling and truly an honor to be invited to be in your show and to share a little bit about Simagic. And yeah, I hope the viewers get to learn something about us, and they get to enjoy our products as well.
I hope so too, and thank you for coming here again. As I said in the intro, you guys have really made a huge name for yourselves in a short amount of time. Before we get to that, let's just go back in time just a little bit
Sure.
and talk about the beginning of Sim Magic and how this company came from nowhere to somewhere in the sim racing world.
Okay, so truth be told, I am not the founder of Simagic. The founder of
Okay.
Simagic is my counterpart. His name is Barry Lee, and he hails from China, Shenzhen, China. Um, a little bit about those who don't know about Shenzhen, China. Shenzhen, China is, I guess, in today's terms, the Silicon Valley of the world. You know, in terms of where you want to be to bring something from ideation to prototyping and to mass production, selling it to the world. There is no place on earth that you want to be today other than Shenzhen,
Because it's
right?
all
It's got the
right there.
talent. Yep, it's all right there. In terms of the talent, in terms of the companies available where you can easily source for parts, in terms of the technology, and obviously cost. There are huge cost advantages. So the whole world actually, or especially in sim racing industry, all the companies that you are familiar with, for the most part, they all get their stuff from China
Right.
and in Guangzhou region,
I was going to
right?
sarcastically say that. Say if you were a company in Silicon Valley and you were
Right.
developing hardware for sim racing and you want to do research and development, well, let's face it, anything you're going to ask for or need is probably going to
Yes.
come from China, which means now you're placing an order with an electronics firm. A few days later, you get it if you're lucky. Whereas you guys
Eh,
walk down the street and you get the part you need and you're testing it an hour
absolutely.
later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
That is a
So
huge
there you go.
advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. So that
Now,
that's who we are. So in 2018, um, we released our first product called the M10. It was a
mhm,
stepper motor, direct drive. And at the time when direct drives like AccuForce, Fanatec, and Cube and all that were going for you know retail close to $2,000. I think so, right? At that
yeah,
time, it was
yeah,
still considered pretty much out of reach for the average enthusiast.
super premium.
Um, Super premium, yes. The M10 was released at a base, just for the base, of US $500,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Um, Granted, it didn't look as fancy, but that brought along a number of key things that have become quite familiar in the marketplace today. For one, the quick release system that that you see, right? The one that uses your D1 or energy quick release system. Now, a lot of people who may not know, they would say, "Hey, you guys didn't uh, didn't create that quick release. It was used. It was created by other companies and and in existence in motorsport, and that is true. But we were the first company to use that and develop a wireless transfer data system for its application SIM.
Right. Which is
That was
huge.
the innovation, which is
Yeah.
huge,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, and
There you
anyone
go.
who is early to the DD market knows the only options were wraparound cables.
Absolutely. So what happened was that Barry, how that came about was that and this goes way back. We're all first and foremost passionate sim enthusiasts and petrol heads at heart, right?
Yeah.
And Barry was tooling around with what is that called? OSW, open source wheel.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So he did that, and his particular expertise was he is a software and electronics engineer um, by training and occupation.
Uh-huh.
Many years, over years of experience, steeped in understanding, developing, producing motors.
Okay.
So he knows motors like no one else, and he customized. Simagic customizes motors specifically for sim racing, the reproduction of force feedback forces that would give us the best experience, immersive experience possible.
Right.
I think that is what sets us apart from a lot of the other companies.
Right. So
You know,
not all electric motors are the same.
no, no, not many people know this. Not many people know this. And I can't blame them because not many people have the as the saying goes, you know what you know,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, if you didn't have the opportunity to actually try the difference between a gear-driven wheel versus a belt-driven wheel, you wouldn't know for sure which actually was better,
Right.
right? So similarly, among direct drive wheels, unless you actually get to feel it, it's really hard for you to experience it for yourself and to know how good one really is relative to another. I mean, you
Right.
could hear reviews from influencers, YouTubers, your friends, and all that, but it's never ever going to be the same as actually feeling yourself.
Sure, sure.
Yeah,
And even and I'm going to be the first one to admit it as a influencer, I hate using that word, but
yeah. Use that word.
uh,
Sorry. Yeah,
but as a YouTuber, I like that better.
yeah.
I find that like I do get to test a great variety of products, right? But
Right.
usually there's a
Absolutely.
big period of time between them. And
Mm.
when you switch that to like a true research and development level where you
Yep.
can literally jump from one to another is the really the only way you can get that true test.
That's
I've done
true.
that in
Yep.
circumstances on small scale, but never
Right.
large enough to produce a lineup of wheels or create a motor specifically built for sim racing.
Yep. Absolutely. So again, while so for us, it was very important that we build stuff that not just what we think people out there want, but what we want for ourselves.
Okay.
And so we have to be true to um, our own principles, the standards that we put on ourselves, the standards that we subscribe to. And we'd like to think that those standards are pretty high. Um, um, we have a relentless pursuit on quality. We source. I mean, if you felt our products before, you know.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah. So
I've never
even
driven the
since the Mighty
M10, but
340, right?
I've never driven the M10, but
Yeah.
I've driven the Mini, the Alpha, and the Ultimate.
Sure. Sure. And it's the same with all of them. They are all, the sort of bulletproof kind of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
it goes right down to the switches, the buttons, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. So we don't cut corners on any of that. You
Right.
know.
Now,
Mm.
with Barry's background and your guys' ability to get parts for testing, is that part of, I mean, you guys went from the M10 to look at the display behind you. You guys have three different
Yeah.
bases, what, like eight different rims, different shifters, different pedals. Is all of that, I mean, what has led to this massive expansion in a short amount of time? Is it that ability, or is it, like you were saying, just what you guys want?
Yeah. It's a bit of both. Um, because we can,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
I love it.
Because we can, and we have dreams. And I guess, especially for me, I guess I'm at a point in my life where I feel I am truly blessed and grateful to be able to bring these dreams to reality. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I mean, this is my post-retirement gig. You know,
Not a bad not a bad gig.
right. The first half of my life was, being a slave to money. Life gets you, and you have to, bring up your family and all that kind of stuff, right? So
Right.
so thankfully, again, I've been fortunate enough to have that more or less taken care of. And when the opportunity came along, I jumped at it. And but the funny thing is this, right? I think I have not worked harder than I've ever worked in my life.
Right.
Right? I eat, sleep. Can I say shit on the show?
On my show, you can. Yeah.
Yeah, dream, sim 24 hours, 25 hours a day if I had,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't stop. I'm constant, even on my downtime. I'm scrolling through news, the different groups on sim related stuff, seeing what's out there, and
Yeah.
at any point, ideas just come,
Right.
because you're absorbing information from everywhere, from all corners, opinions from all sorts of people. And at some point, when you sleep, the work starts happening, right? And your subconscious. Yeah.
I think right there just answered my question perfectly. So when we talk about how a company goes from a single direct drive wheel to an extensive lineup of products, it was that exact passion, that 25 hours a day, 8 days
Right.
a week,
Absolutely. Right.
500 days a year,
A year.
a way of doing it,
Absolutely. Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
understand because I do the same thing. I eat, drink, sleep, and sim racing as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
my next thought is sort of right in line with what you guys have had, but we have seen the sim racing industry massively evolve. A lot of people would say that COVID was a catalyst and took us
Mm.
from a certain curve and just put a huge spike on it. And in that time, not only was it the growth of community, but it was
Mhm, mhm.
the evolution of products. Because in 2 or 3 years, we've seen a complete facelift of sim racing. What do you guys, I mean, what you said about sleeping it, what are you guys doing to kind of stay with that rapid acceleration of innovation that seems to be required because every company is trying to one up another and stay ahead of that curve with new products?
Yeah, especially in the last few years, um, there have been more and more brands that have entered this field. It has certainly intensified the competition. Um, but it's you either it's that whole Psych 101 thing, right? It's fight or flight, right?
Yeah.
So for us, um, and this is where again I would say this is where I feel we are different from the other companies. For us, it has to be fight. Why? Because sim is the only thing we do. we're not part of a larger company, you know. We're not an offshoot of another company. We're not an experiment. We're not a cash grab. We're here for the long run,
Right.
you know. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. So we talked about a little bit about research and development. Um, I mean, I can't even imagine. I mean, I've done a lot of different things in sim racing. One thing I've never done is develop a product for market. Um, I mean, take me through that process. I mean, does it start as an idea on a napkin over dinner or a dream in your head? And then how does it go? I mean, how does it go from there to being something that and then how long is the process that I then a consumer would be able to physically buy one?
Any and all of those that you just mentioned, you know, at any point in time, we will be talking because we're talking sim all day long, and we have these chat groups, and all of a sudden someone can say, "Hey, you know, I think this is what we need to come up with. I just saw this, and you know, and someone else on another day might say that, oh, you know, I was in this race car, and I thought that this looked really good. This felt really good. It's something that we don't have. I think we can do it. I think we should do it. Yeah. So I it starts off from many different points, um, but from there. We have a great team. We have a great team of people who almost always says it can be done. You know, it can be done. If it's out there, if it can be dreamed of, um, um, it can it can just be done.
Right.
And that's a great thing about it, about being in Shenzhen itself, and being with a small but extremely passionate team of people. You know, obviously a lot of things that we put out, we also have to ask sensible questions like, okay, you know, like for example, people talk about
Yeah.
inverted pedals, right?
Yes.
Said, oh, okay, people want inverted pedals. Question how many?
Right.
Is that the majority, or is that the minority?
Right.
Um,
Is it enough to
are
justify a change?
Absolutely. Is it enough for us to pour in the research and development into bringing this to the market, and how many can we make? And as it is with most decisions that we have to make, it is a it's because we are limited by resources and budgets. Deciding to go with one thing means we take away resources and time from something else. So
Sure.
we do have to prioritize and
And
stuff like that,
and
you know?
balance that.
Yeah. And
Well,
and we have to balance that. Yeah.
and I can only imagine because I see it from the video creation side, but from the manufacturing side, I can only imagine it's the same. You create something, and somebody's always looking for what you could have done or should have
Yeah, yeah.
done, right?
Always.
And
Yeah.
so like
Yeah,
a
yes, yeah, of
inverted
course.
pedal,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
I'll use rain as an example for if you're making software, oh, your sim doesn't
Right,
have
right,
rain, and it's like, well,
right.
how many people are going to really, I mean, I know that's a hot topic right now, rain, but I mean, how many people really are going to use it? And inverted pedals, how many are really going to use it? Because that could be very critical as to whether you should divert that company resources and take
Right,
away from the development of the next greatest
right,
product to do
right,
that. Okay.
right.
Uh,
And oftentimes also we try, obviously, to do the most sensible thing. Low lying fruit, as they say, you know,
right,
something that's easy and quick to develop, bring to market, that we know consumers want.
right,
We do that first. But I'll tell you this: at any one time, our team has a list of at least 10 different projects going on. Yeah, 10 different projects going on. I can't say too much about it, because not all of them will actually get to the market,
right.
right? Yeah. Some of them may be killed off even at the 11th hour.
Right.
Yeah, but um, our guiding principle right now is this, right? Um, Anything that we feel can increase the immersion experience for sim is game.
Right. So with that whole process, I mean, what are some of the quality control? How do you ensure that when you build something that it works as designed? Is there testing process involved? Is there troubleshooting? Is there just a knowledge of these parts and products?
Yeah, so our Barry's expertise again is mostly in the software and the electronic side. So in terms of the direct drives and wheels and stuff like that, we've got a very high confidence level at the start. But later on, what we did was we started delving into more mechanical products, like the pedals, like the sequential shifters, and our latest offering was the H shifter. Um,
Great shifter, by the
but we
way.
got in. Yes, thank you, thanks. Um, but we spent a long time learning and establishing a set of mechanical product design, verification, even developed our own aging and testing mechanisms. I'm not sure if you've gone to those IKEA stores, and
Yeah.
sometimes they have that machine showing you how many times their mattresses are being pounded and stuff
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, so we've actually developed our own machines to test things like the hydraulics and stuff like that, or the button clicks
Uh-huh.
and things like that.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So again, these are things that we go to great lengths to do because we feel that we owe it to not just customers, but to ourselves in establishing and preserving those standards, you know. And I think many customers who have felt the Simagic difference can attest to that. I will have to say this though, not everything that we release at especially at the get-go is perfect. Nothing can ever be, but what we do is we I think we do a lot, we put in a lot of effort to try to foresee and get ahead of issues.
Right.
And when we get any feedback that will help in improving, we immediately go back and we do the right thing.
Right.
For our P2000 pedals, which today um, is a tried and tested product. It has actually gone through evolutionary stages. From the first time it was released.
Okay.
We had to make a number of improvements over time based on the feedback. You
Okay.
know, um, and if you've looked at what we're very proud of, if you've looked at one of the latest videos released, I wouldn't call it a review. I'm not sure if you saw this. It was done by a small little YouTuber couple called Sam and Flo from France. Lovely people, pure sim enthusiasts. Um, and what they did was they had gotten hold without us knowing. This
Uh-huh.
is totally unsolicited until the whole process was finished. They had gotten hold of a an ex-Le Mans champion and a WEC pilot who was looking to upgrade his personal sim system. And in particular, for these professional race drivers, they're particularly uh, they're extremely particular about their pedals,
Okay.
right? And what Sam and Flo did was that they had opened an invitation to the different companies that produces pedals and say, okay, we have this guy, a professional and very accomplished racer in real life, who is looking for his own personal set of pedals.
Okay.
Okay, would you want to um, would you want to offer your pedals for him to choose, right? So apparently, a number of companies turned down the opportunity.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, and those companies obviously shall not be named. Uh, but that goes to say a lot of the companies that were left, um, you know, that had provided their products to be reviewed.
Well, sure.
Now
They
ours,
knew the circumstances and who
right,
was going to be critical, which is a big part of
right,
conditions.
correct. Now, having said that though, kudos to all of the companies whose pedals were put up for this person's selection,
Uh-huh.
because they obviously felt very confident and very confident about the engineering, the quality of the products, the performance, etc.
Right.
Okay, off the top of my head, I can recall that they were the Husingfeld Ultimates,
Uh-huh.
Venom Atrax,
Okay.
and the Acetec. What's the name for it?
Indicta.
It's not the fourth. Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so. Right, and our P2000s. Now our P2000s were a bit unusual. We weren't asked for our set because Seventh Flow had a set already available,
Okay.
right? And so was put through the whole selection, and I will let you and your viewers look for the video and look at the process.
Yeah, I'll put a
Uh,
link in the description of the show here so people can go check it out.
right, and it was in English. Obviously, Seventh Flow being French, the introduction was the audio introduction was in French, but had English subtitles.
Okay.
But when you get into the review itself, the driver or the pilot, he speaks in English, so the rest of the review is actually in English.
Okay.
You know, and yeah, I won't reveal the ending, but we did well.
I
You
was
know,
gonna say, I
uh,
assume now you guys, by the name of pedals you just listed off, you guys were the least expensive of the group. I'm assuming by a good margin.
yeah, yeah, and for especially when you consider that ours is full a full hydraulics.
Mm-hmm.
I think it retails for about 800 euros, 700 plus 800 euros.
Uh-huh.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find another set of fully hydraulic pedals for that price on the market.
Okay.
Yeah,
Awesome. Well,
yeah,
that's great. And again, I've showed some clips there so people can see, but I'd encourage you all to go out and check out that video to get the
thanks.
great feedback from a real life driver, which leads me to my next question. So it's real common nowadays for sim companies to want to
Yes,
not only have affiliations with, but work with real life drivers for, A,
right,
marketing. I think it's a good angle, and
right.
B, often for feedback. Are you guys working with real life drivers in any way? And how does that translate back to the products?
Absolutely. From our very first product and every other product after, we've always worked with real life drivers. Always. You know, we have our staff of drivers in China, as well as now having the opportunity to work with our various athletes. We call them our athletes
Uh-huh.
across the world. And then getting feedback back from them. Um, um, I would like to also, take this opportunity to bring up this point about our athletes. Um, I mean, it's very common for a lot of companies, as you say, in marketing, to get a particular driver or to endorse their product, and in exchange they pay a lot of money and all that for it.
Right.
I think for us it was a bit difficult. That's putting it mildly, because we're a very small company, we're a startup. We don't have deep pockets. But I think a lot of times our athletes choose us. Let me give you an example. We just had an athlete who made history last week. He is the youngest Formula Drift driver to win a Formula Drift race.
Okay.
Formula Drift Japan. He's 13 years old.
Oh my.
And his name is Hiro Minowa.
Uh-huh.
And how we discovered him as our athlete was he was already using our Alpha Mini.
Okay.
And he was going online and he was practicing with people and all that kind of stuff. And when I found out about it, I said, hey, we got to support this guy because he uses our stuff.
Yeah.
And he actually believes in using our stuff to train for his in real life competition.
Uh-huh.
So it's not about us throwing money at somebody and say, hey, be our ambassador, say good things about us. And not no, this we are very proud of the fact that our athletes are truly users and believe in sim having a valuable impact and contribution to their in real life accomplishments.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, has working with any of these athletes worked backwards? I mean, like I think I like your handbrake, for example. And there are a lot of ways to go about making a handbrake, but you guys
Yes.
definitely
Yeah.
went with influenced by certain driving disciplines, rally
Yes.
or drift in
That's
your
right. Yeah.
styling. Is this coming back and forth from the drivers, or is this internal from
Yes.
Simagic? I know you guys are big lovers of
Oh,
drift and part of that how you
yeah,
got here
yeah.
too.
I've got to take a bit of that blame. That a lot of that blame falls on me because my background is in drift.
Uh-huh.
You know, yeah. Um, do we have time to talk a bit about that?
We do.
You
We
know,
do.
oh, we do. Okay. So how I got into sim primarily is because where I come from, Singapore. Fun fact: it's the most expensive place in the world to own a car.
Uh-huh.
We have extremely high gasoline prices, probably one of the highest in the world again. But aside from that, a I'll give you an example. A 1.6 liter Corolla on the road would cost an equivalent of about 100,000 US dollars,
Oh my God.
and you can only drive it for 10 years.
Right. And then you have to get rid of the
Yeah,
vehicle because it's
and
too
you get rid of and you have to get rid of vehicle, and you only get back small tokens of.
right.
Yeah,
Ouch.
yeah, and that's not inclusive. That's not inclusive of obviously your gas, your maintenance, your insurance, and other
Right.
stuff.
Right.
So
Wow.
there you go. So what that means is that for people like us, petrol heads, it's a
Uh-huh.
curse to live on this island
Right.
because cars are expensive, land is scarce. We do not have any fixed permanent tracks
Uh-huh.
um, to to train to practice on or whatever. We have to travel up north into Malaysia, which is a different country altogether. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, and so very early on, in order to get as much seat and affordable seat time as possible, I had to I had to look at other options, and I discovered Sim.
Right.
Um, and if anyone were to doubt my story, I would say, hey, when I first started, there wasn't force feedback. I started on Mad Cats. I don't think
Uh-huh.
many people know about Mad Cats.
Oh yeah.
You not
Yeah.
yet. Yeah,
Sure,
right?
sure.
Yeah. So I had the Mad Cats. Logitech. Most people talk about G27 as if that was the grandfather of Logitech. No, there was the DFGT.
Yeah.
There was the G25 before the G27.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I had all of that. Then I moved to your Thrustmaster, your T500, went to your Fanatec, um, CSR Elite, CSW, and DDR.
You've
So
done them
there
all.
you go. Yep, went through it all. So it came to a point where I as a user, I know what I like. I know what I need. I know what's lacking, and had opportunity to then do something that I felt I needed. And when it comes to drifting, this was particularly challenging.
Uh-huh.
As you know, and when you test wheelbases, when it comes to drifting, the rotation speed of the wheel is far more demanding than it is for racing.
Uh-huh.
You know, you could get by with a G25 and do really well on racing,
Uh-huh.
but you can't do the same for drifting.
Right.
It's never ever going to be fast enough,
Right.
you know? Yeah.
Well, and in
So,
general,
yep.
on a racetrack, this is,
Yeah,
this is almost
that's
full
about,
lock. I don't care how many degrees your wheel thinks it is. This
there you
is,
go.
that is
Yep,
99% of the time on a racetrack. Well, in racing
there you go.
conditions.
Yep, yep.
But in
So
drifting,
if a,
it's you see
yep,
them spinning that wheel from lock to lock at 900 or 1080 or
right, 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 absolutely. And so the characteristics, okay, so the simple logic to this is this. If we were to develop the devices that meet or exceed the requirements for drifting, it will meet and exceed the requirements for road racing.
Sure, sure.
Yeah.
Well, and if we are really truly designing realistic hardware,
Yes.
you think about those drift cars, and I'm sure they've changed the steering rack ratios, but the cars are
Yep.
still cars, just like a race car, which means the
Absolutely.
spectrum that a steering wheel needs to cover isn't just one or the other. It really
Mm.
is from one to the other. And I think
Exactly.
that's
Yep.
important. And what
Yep.
what you're saying here is that you guys really have
Yep.
developed wheels. They're going to feel at home at a 180 degree of necessity all the way to 1080 degree of, and I'm saying necessity, not ability, but
Right.
necessity, and
Sure.
actively working that way. um
Sure. And it's also very interesting because I only just learned this, right? Yes, I've always said, our motors were customized to produce the best kind of immersion possible, right? And only recently in a trip to Japan, um, I had a meeting with another enthusiast who was not only into driving and racing and drifting, but who was also into trucking.
okay.
Trucking.
Yeah.
Now, Euro Truck Simulator is a big thing.
Uh-huh.
I've never tried it before and all that, but I've been told it's a big thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
ATS, American Truck Simulator as well. Sure.
American trucks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Now, this guy, he also has experienced the full gamut of wheelbases out there. I mean, he does his own YouTube thing in Japan,
Uh-huh.
and he said, you know, Simagic really impressed me because I know of only two wheelbases that were able to reproduce the idling vibrations of a truck,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Yeah.
and one of them was Simagic.
Well,
There are
and
only two
this,
brands.
yeah,
I think the other one is pretty well known itself. So
right.
yes,
But
yeah,
what you said there is very important, because that, as much as that's a hardware issue, it's also software. Um, every company, so for those out there who don't understand, force feedback is not a whole lot different than a full motion simulation. Um, the games have output sources that sometimes are made for gauges, sometimes are made for motion, but every company is on their own to interpret those signals, and every signal is going to
yes,
have a curve, whether it's linear or curved, and peaks and limitations, and those interpretations, I think, are what change the factor of the heart of the wheel. And so when we're talking about a wheel that can go from Formula One to Formula Drift, or from
right,
Formula Drift to Euro Truck,
sure,
it's having good interpretation of those
that's true.
values, and through software, which we don't get to see, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I totally agree with you. Software is immensely important in interpreting lot of that force feedback, you know. Having said that though, hardware, a lot of people don't realize this, hardware is essentially critically important, because the hardware also limits how software can go. That's the ceiling, you
Right.
know. If the ceiling is this high, and if your software is really good, you obviously have got high potential.
Yes.
If your hardware can only go this much, no matter how good the software is, it's always going to be capped by the limitations of your hardware.
Sure.
So yes, both have to be good, you
Sure.
know. But
Well,
starting off with a customized good motor is critical. Yeah,
I think that in general, and most of this comes from lack of knowledge from the sim racing industry, that there's been an overly huge focus on Newton meters. And that this is
totally,
like the they act like it's
totally.
horsepower. And even if we were to say
Right. Yeah.
horsepower isn't
Yep.
just horsepower. Because if you're
Yeah.
doing horsepower in a V8 with a big cam, and you
Yeah.
compare
Yeah.
that to the drivability of a
Yep.
high compression turbocharged, 400 horsepower isn't always just 400 horsepower, because one might be able to get him to the ground and the other might not. Right. So, sure, that
Absolutely.
400 horsepower
Absolutely.
only comes into play at
Yeah.
full power
Yep.
versus the other
That's
one can
right.
get it low. Um,
Right.
Mechanical motors. So, when the first direct drive wheels hit the market, I actually come from a box making family. We make corrugated boxes, brown boxes.
Right. Right.
Um, and I'm like, that's the motor that runs our conveyor belt. That's the motor that runs our printing presses. And I'm
I
like,
was about to say electric scooters and whatnot. Yep.
yeah. And yet
Yep.
everything has a different requirement. And so, the
Yep.
only knowledge I have in motors is from like RCs, RC
Right.
cars. And it's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
well,
Yes. Yes.
the motor might fit in the same package, but how many times that wire went
That's right.
around the
The
coil?
coils and the quality of the coils, the magnets, the quality of
Yes.
magnets, and they all make a difference. You
Yeah.
know, so you just can't. Yeah. So that it's Shaun. Yeah. Sorry, I'm being rude. I cut you off there, but you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
So the problem out there today is that people are using, well, as they say, a little knowledge is dangerous,
Yes.
because yeah, and you only know what you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So oftentimes, look, what they say is true. You really do get what you pay for.
Mm-hmm.
You really do get what you pay for. But also, having said that, though, being a company that is in China has got certain inherent advantages when it comes to cost.
Right.
You know, so there you go.
Well, and I feel my next question for you really was going to be like, you know, you guys are shaking up the world and how do you do it? But I think that we've kind of extensively answered that question, which is, starting with the passion and the love for the industry or the hobby. I think, but forget the industry, the love for the hobby itself.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And then the accessibility to parts, research and development, and then the starting wisdom with the background that really backs what we're doing here.
Yep.
Because again, looking at the image behind you, and I'm just like, this is just a matter of years. This is a matter. I mean, there are companies have been doing this for decades who don't have that extensive a lineup. And
Yeah.
and
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 yep.
and what I love about it is, and I think that picture it displays it really well. It covers a broad spectrum of
On
users.
motorsports. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Um, so we've talked about the inspiration. How big a company? You've talked about the size of your company, and you know, are there a lot of people involved? I know you're a small company, but
We're a small company. We're about 40-ish people right now.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Um, um, but obviously, we want to be able to grow. Um, we want to grow, but we will grow at our own pace.
Okay.
You
Uh,
know. Um, and we as much as there are commercial considerations, you know, we still have a lot of dreams to bring to life, to reality. Um, so we hope we hope more people get to know the Simagic difference, so that we can continue to bring quality immersion to more people. You know, without that support, obviously we won't have the resources to pour back into R&D and all that. You know,
Right.
and we are serious about R&D.
Right.
You
Okay.
know. Mm.
So on that same line, I've saw a teaser. I think I think
Yes.
your next product might be a set of pedals. I just saw this
Uh,
weird video and I was like, are they is that a new set of pedals? P1000 maybe? So
yeah,
is that the
yeah.
next thing we can
It's
expect? Do you have anything to tell us about? I mean, that didn't tell us a whole lot,
okay.
that video I saw.
Sure. So here's the scoop for you, Shaun,
Okay.
exclusively on Simpit,
Oh, I love
right?
it.
So
I love
I'll be
it.
able to tell you more. And even as we talk about it, you know, I can tell you, I'll I'll just talk about it. It's because we're still evolving that, even as we are bringing it into production and releasing it and all that. But we're still evolving it.
Right.
So the P1000, you know, our first pedal set was the P2000, and we came in at at the high level, right? Full
Yeah.
hydraulics. I
Yeah.
mean, as a first set of pedals, as opposed to a lot of other companies, their first set of pedals, oh, make it affordable, you know. So, yeah, but it's still affordable. It's
Yeah.
just high end affordable,
Right.
right? Okay. So now that we have shown to the world our capability, you know, and what we stand for, we want to be able to offer more people the same semantic dedication to immersion, the same quality, the same performance, but at a more affordable price.
Right.
Okay, don't hold me to it, but our target is to be the upper end of $400.
Wow.
Okay, for a bit
Wow.
for the next set of pedals.
Uh-huh.
Obviously, fully load cell. You know, we've got a lot of very interesting key innovations in that.
Awesome.
And what is very interesting is that it's been built with the design has been built with upgradability from the get-go.
Okay.
All right. So you start off with a set of really high quality pedals, not hydraulic though, you know,
Uh-huh.
that's the P2000s,
Yeah.
but you have the option to upgrade to hydraulics when you're ready.
Okay.
That's one.
Oh, that's fantastic. Really, really awesome.
Right.
Um,
Right. So the second feature,
uh-huh.
should I talk about this?
Yes. No.
Okay. So, okay. You know, everybody talks about semi-cubes, force feedback pedals,
Yes, yes.
you know, really good actuators and all that kind of stuff. Um, but those cost like $2,500 a pedal, if I'm not wrong,
Yeah, they're super
right?
expensive. Super
Right?
expensive.
Yeah. I mean, it's really good. We could do those, but
Right?
obviously we respect innovation and we respect patents and stuff like that. If we do something like that, we would still respect patents. You know,
Right.
to our name to date, we have over 20 patents. Most people don't realize this.
Okay.
Okay, but we have come up with what we feel are cost effective. I mean, again, it's stuff that we would produce on for our standards.
Uh-huh.
So if you know our Simagic standards, you know it's going to be good. Force feedback transducer add-ons
Okay.
to the pedals.
Oh,
Okay, that capture telemetry
Uh-huh.
and reproduces that.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
Oh, I can't
Yep.
wait. I can't wait. So that was my next question. I think a really good way to get out of here. Uh, Obviously, innovation's been a big part of Simagic. We
Right.
see the new pedals. You just talked about where the direction for even more extensive immersion or
There you go.
relationship.
Yep.
Even I it's now
Yep.
becoming a relationship between myself and my equipment. Um, what do you, I mean, not specific to any products, but what do you see in the future of Simagic?
Well, I mean, again, anything that, like I said earlier, anything that you can imagine, anything that increases the level of immersion. What are the key things that are missing today, right? Um, so visual, we've got VR,
Mm-hmm.
right? Tactile, we've got your what's in your hands, what's on your feet. You got to think about, you
Uh,
know, right? And you got to think about, uh, so like I said, we still got stuff, right?
so
We still got
you're
stuff to
saying
do,
there's some
right?
obvious holes still that people
There's
could
some
probably
obvious holes,
figure out in the future.
right? Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's some obvious holes.
Awesome.
But I'm not done with the P1000 yet.
Right. Oh, you're not. No. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
I
no.
forgive me. I forgive me. What else? What else? Do tell.
So like in real race cars, and I'm not sure if you know. Okay, again, this is from my drifting sort of background, and Formula Drift. One of the latest things that they introduced in this past race was LED lights on the outside of the car
Uh-huh.
that tell people and lets the judges know if the cars are on throttle accelerating or if they
Okay.
are decelerating on the brakes and all that.
Okay.
You know, this is more form rather than function, but
Okay.
it's a nice form. We're all geeks and all that. We like our RGB lights,
Yes.
we like our LED lights. But more so than that, what if it also displays the information for the people who are watching our videos and people who are watching us drive and
Right.
from a distance, oh, he's on the throttle, he's on the brakes, and you
Right.
know, hmm,
For
yep.
people with
So
man caves,
absolutely,
that's gonna be
like
super
you,
cool. Yeah. Or
like me,
yeah, for anybody who is doing this to entertain anyone beyond themselves, right?
absolutely,
Yeah.
right.
Whether
So
it
you
be
just so you can imagine, the guy stomps on the brakes, the room lights up in
yeah,
red, and
yeah,
so, yeah, yeah,
a lot more excitement.
yeah, a lot more excitement.
I
So it's
love it.
all about stuff. It's a nice touch. It's not gonna make you go any faster, no,
Right.
but
But it's immersion, and that's something
it's
that I'm
immersion.
always
There you go.
pointing out about sim racing is
Right.
immersion. We're just trying to get more immersed in what we're doing.
Yeah. And then okay, so it starts with that, and it's software driven.
Uh-huh.
So if anything that's software driven, you know, there is the potential for new features to come on,
Sure.
firmware
Well,
upgrades, stuff
I
like
might
that, right?
I might ask that you let me use it for me and say, okay, well, can I make them flash when my ABS is on? I
Sure.
mean,
Right.
I'm just saying, if you give me lights that are interactive with my equipment tuned into the game, it can be for entertainment for others watching, which is exciting and fun, or it could be useful information as a driver. Another thing I really wanted to talk to you about was customer relations. Making products for the entire world, making products for people using different components, different sims. You don't know what they're using with your gear. You have new products on the market. How does a relationship work with your customer once they are part of the Simagic family when it comes to maybe they have an issue with the product, or maybe they have a question or need more help, or maybe they have an idea for the future? What's it like working with your clients once they're out there?
Okay. So thanks again for the question, Sean. Um, Customer support is critically important to us. Again, I say this as a customer myself, having been a customer myself of very many different companies. And one very famous company um, would be located thousands of miles away in a totally different time zone, speaks a different language. It would be very frustrating for me to get any sort of um, after sale support. You know, I had to bring my wheelbase, hand carry them, fly to a different country just to get it fixed. You
Right.
know, um, and it was ridiculous. I certainly did want Simagic's customers to go through that sort of ordeal. And being a small company, I had to make a decision of how I wanted to make certain that my customers got the best sort of customer support in a sensible and pragmatic way.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people think about, oh, you should do this, you should do this, but they forget the words sensible and pragmatic.
Right.
You know, when we start up companies, we don't have, if I had $1 billion, I would hire an army of customer support service staff that are available 24/7, 8 days a week, 500 days a year, and
Uh-huh.
speak all the languages of the globe and even some in the galaxy.
Right.
But the reality is that it's not possible for a company to do that from
Right.
the get-go, right? So the most pragmatic way was to do it through our distributors. In this day and age, it will be all too simple for me to sell Simagic on the internet
Uh-huh.
directly to customers.
Right.
It's easy to build, but the thing is, remember, I want people to have the sort of customer support that I would like myself. What does
Right.
that mean? Speaking to someone who speaks in my language,
Mm-hmm.
in my time zone. If
Mm-hmm.
anything, if I had to return anything, it would be within a reasonable distance and time.
Right. Right.
What
And
this meant,
cost.
and cost. There you go. Yeah, that's a function of cost, right? The
Mm-hmm.
distance. So so it became very clear that to do that, I would then sacrifice
Right.
margins that I would have kept if I had sold directly on the
Uh-huh.
internet. I would sacrifice that and give that to distributors who are located where my customers are.
Okay. Yes.
Right? Makes sense now?
Yeah, absolutely.
So so for the folks who who are critical and say that Simagic is dodgy or shady because they don't provide customer support directly. I said, you know, think about all of those things I just raised, right?
Right.
Uh, I'm certain you don't want to have to deal with a company that is thousands of miles away in a different time zone that speaks uh, a language that's different from yours. You know,
Sure.
we do that through your distributor, the person that you bought it from.
Yes.
So I hope that answers the questions about, when people say that, oh, I insist on talking directly to the manufacturers, or
Right.
I insist on sending an email direct. There is no advantage. It is not a benefit to talking to Simagic directly. Talk to your
Right.
distributors. That's why we also say purchase only from our authorized distributors, because they are trained. They
Right.
are in direct contact with us every single day. And
Awesome.
you will get, and the folks that have done that are happy. And like most stuff on the internet, most people who are happy don't come out and say that. It's
Sure.
right. There you go.
Sure. When my problem is solved, I'm back to driving. I'm
That's
not,
right.
it's
Yeah.
when my
Yeah.
stuff still doesn't work that I'm going to be on the forum being, the internet being vocal.
And truth be told, we're no longer yes, we are, we haven't been in the market for that long, but we've been in the market long enough to stand the test of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 years. It's not so long and it's not so short.
Right.
If we didn't have any customer support, we wouldn't be here today. Sure.
Any intentions on going into the console market?
Oh, great question. Great question. Okay, there are several things that you have to consider. And remember, we would like to do it, but it's really the console brands that hold the licenses. And the
Right.
licenses are prohibitively expensive.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Um, and the thing is, we are a company that has its principles. We want to do things right. So we are working with another company that has come up with a solution
Okay.
to this.
Okay.
Okay. And we work with them largely also because we have tested other products out there that claim to have compatibility. And frankly speaking, we felt that, again, they didn't meet our standards in terms of the force feedback reproduction.
Uh-huh.
We've even tested it with our competitors' products
Right.
that these converters, right? And we felt that it left a lot to be desired.
Yeah.
Okay. Uh, yeah.
But yeah,
So
yeah.
uh, so
So,
there, yes.
well, do
That
you?
the long and short answer to that is that yes, there will be a solution to this.
Uh-huh.
It will not be officially, officially produced by us,
Right.
but we have worked exclusively with a company to produce the best FFB they can expect from a Simagic device on console.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I've worked with such companies in the past on certain other things, and I know what you're getting at
Yes.
there. It's really
Yes.
a shame that the consoles themselves, this being Microsoft and PlayStation, um,
Yes.
creates such a problem for peripherals. I mean, you think about the PCs, and it's like, you want to make something for the PC? Go ahead, right? I mean, there is no
Yeah.
hierarchy. There is no
Right.
mastermind behind the PC. And I think that's something that when people ask about compatibility that they forget. It's not
Yep.
ability, it's really just money. I mean, it's like,
It's
do you
money.
want to?
That's right.
This is what I love about what you guys and some other companies, and when I say some other companies, I don't mean the mainstream companies of sim
Right.
racing, but that you
Right.
guys have come in at the medium high market
Uh, right.
and
That's
then
right.
started actually working your way lower.
Right.
And I love that because what it has done, it has changed sim racing.
I don't believe, in my heart of hearts, I don't believe that any other company can produce at our can produce at our quality and performance at a lower price.
Okay.
You know, because of the quality of components and because of the amount of innovation that has gone in, etc. And you truly do get what you pay for. Um, nothing against nothing against brands who come out with products that are cheaper, you know, um, but it will never be the same.
Right.
You can't expect something that's being produced at um, $300 to perform like something that is at $600.
Right.
You just can't. And it goes back to your point about Newton meters. The advertisement may say, "Oh, but it's the same amount of Newton meters, so it's really the same thing." You
Right.
know, again, they've never actually had the opportunity to try it side by side.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So
Sure.
on paper, it's gonna be like, you know, a Porsche is always gonna be a Porsche.
Right.
It's like you can get a. I don't want to name brand names or cars, that may produce the same amount of horsepower and all, but it's never going to be the same.
Well, that you said it. What you clued into right there is a perfect analogy, though, because and I love using the automotive industry because it's a perfect parallel. But
Right.
each car, depending on the type, whether you're talking a front engine, rear drive, right? Whether you're talking a mid engine, whether you're talking all wheel drive, whether you're talking a rear engine car, the way you build your platform distinctly
Absolutely.
changes the way it handles, the way it performs. And that's really important. I'd also say, getting back to, with everything we've said, let's just say that every company made a 15 Newton meter. I'm just throwing a random, but let's just say that
Right.
every company that makes a direct drive wheel actually made a 15 Newton meter, quote unquote, 15 Newton meter wheel base. That doesn't mean they're all going to be the same or feel the
Nope.
same. That is
Definitely
only
not.
a peak power or a sustained peak power, depending on how they market it. But um,
Right.
other than that, the internals are going to change torque. They're going to, I think of the Newton meters as being horsepower, but they don't talk about the torque. And
And they don't talk about where those Newton meters are measured at,
right,
you
right,
know?
right,
Mm.
exactly. And
Right?
is that already at the point of clipping, or is that a safety precautionary level? Is that something I can
Yeah.
do all day long? They
Yeah.
also don't talk about, and not thing that wouldn't be relevant, but fuel efficient. There's so many other factors. So then when we talk about inertia, uh, built-in damping, rotational return speed,
Exactly. Yeah.
all of these
So,
things are a factor of the motor and the software,
yeah.
so it's not always
Yeah.
just Newton meters.
Absolutely. So for us, I know it's like repeating the same thing, but we're not about building things that are good enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can bring things down to a really nice low price point if it's good enough,
Right.
you know. But to do something that is far better, you will just have to pay for quality. I believe for us the principle has always been to deliver the highest quality at a more than fair price because
Right.
we are able to source at the best prices, you know. But a good quality button is still going to cost more,
Right.
you know. As much as I can bring down the price of it, it's still going to cost more than a low quality button.
Sure.
That's just a fact, you know. Yeah.
Sure. And getting back to when I
Mm.
said that you guys were at a medium high, I really meant the medium to high range. And this is something that I've given Simagic and some of the other newer companies a lot of credit for in our industry, as it's not so much that we've reduced the prices, is that we've stopped the runaway prices that were about to hit us,
Oh,
I believe,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because
yeah,
I
yeah. Mm,
I feel like that
mm,
premium level is just going to stay at a out at a Bugatti, out of most people's reach, that we could fantasize,
mhm.
we could look at videos on YouTube of, but it was unobtainable by the most. And I feel that
Right.
you guys have brought a premium level product down to that medium
Absolutely.
level.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
and
Absolutely. That's it.
okay.
That's exactly it. Yep.
And now
Mm.
you guys have your sights on even making it even more affordable or approachable to that new guy, which
Right.
there's
But it's
still
never going to be the cheapest. But it will never be the cheapest because we won't compromise on that.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and
mean,
I
I'll just have to say that, you know.
other than a button cap, I don't see a piece of plastic much behind you there. I
Yeah.
see
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
metal, carbon,
Yeah.
metal, leather,
That's right.
and
Aluminum and stuff like yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
not the
yeah.
kind of materials that you would get at at that super cheap price point. Tyler, it has been really fun. It's been fascinating, and it's, as a guy who's just watched the sim racing industry for a very long time now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
I think you guys have done a very impressive job. I keep coming back to the
Thank
short
you.
amount of time because it's just amazing, but that
Yeah.
isn't what's most impressive. It's like time is just one thing, but it's the quality and the attention to detail, and the way that you've really entered sim racing with enthusiasm and obvious passion and love for sim racing. So I really appreciate what you guys have done, and I mean that wholeheartedly and honestly.
Thanks, Sean. It's a great
Yeah.
pleasure once again. Thank you so much.
So we will stay in touch, and maybe the next time you guys have a teaser video that makes me think I'm going to bring me on the show, and we'll see if we can get more secrets of the future from you again.
Sure, of course.
Awesome.
And there will be, guaranteed. Yeah, there will be.
Very
All right.
exciting. Thank you so much, Tyler.
All right. Thanks, Sean.
All right. Have a great
Okay.
day.
All right. Good night. You too.
So there you have it.
There you go.
Simagic. What a company. What changes they've made a huge impact on the sim racing market. And I've tried a lot of their stuff and I've been very, very happy with it. And I love to see the direction they're going. And most importantly, to a guy like me, again, I've said it so many times tonight, it's passion. It's the passion and love for sim racing. And that's what it is really all about. So I hope you've enjoyed this interview. I sure did. Tyler's a great guy, and we'll bring him on again in the future when we see another teaser. There's something more to know about Simagic. But I hope you've enjoyed this one. This is the Simpit. I'm Shaun Cole, and I'll see you on the track.